I'm talking. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to Roger McAfee, and we're talking about some uncomfortable subjects, problems within the RCMP. And I'm a fan of the RCMP. I grew up part of my years in Regina. Inspector Stevenson, the head of the Regina Training Institute, was a family friend, and I've been out to the barracks many, I bet you I've been to the barracks 150 times in Regina. They were kind enough to put me through their water safety course and their defensive driving course and their high-speed driving course and their turnaround course and their shooting course. I never rode the horses in the musical ride and never cleaned the stables, but I got all sorts of fun things from the RCMP. And then the funnest part was, or the most fun part was when I was going to the University of Regina, Saskatchewan, Regina campus, or Regina College as it were, I drove a Moore's taxi. And the RCMP barracks were down Dewdney, and sort of halfway between there and downtown Regina was the Grey Nuns Hospital. And at that time, you didn't take nursing in university, you took it in the nurse's residence as an articling student at the hospital. And the Grey Nuns Hospital nurse's residence was, of course, a happy hunting ground for the RCMP recruits. So, you know, at 12:15, I would be there with my 1960 Pontiac Moore's taxi out front of the King's Hotel. Well, 4 RCMP officers and 4 nurses would pour out of the King's Hotel, pile into my 6-passenger 60 Pontiac, and I would drive them, drop the girls off at the Grey Nuns Hospital and get the guys out to their barracks. And I did that a couple hundred times as well. It was every night.
Yeah, the other thing is,
they were just human.
Yeah, that's right.
And because of that, in small towns, and of course that was still the time when an RCMP officer had to wait 5 years and get permission to get married.
To get married, that's right.
So all sorts of them were actually married.
Yep.
And the cop was in Milestone, Saskatchewan, and his wife, the nurse, was the nurse in the hospital was his wife actually, and they shared a house, and that was all a bunch. But that was a good arrangement. Cops and nurses as emergency personnel in every little small town in the north.
There you go. When I was before I went to law school, I took a year out and I was a journalist, and the RCMP. It had been rumored that the RCMP had undercover agents on the various campuses posing as students.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
I have no
and so I decided I was going to do a story on this because part of my job was to supply the university newspapers with copy. So I phoned up the then commissioner of the RCMP, C.W. Harbison, and I identified myself and said, "Could I have an interview with you? This is what I want to know." And he said, "Yes." So I went up, and he
now,
didn't.
Were you in Ottawa at this time?
I was, yeah.
Were you living in Ottawa?
Yes.
Okay.
He didn't pull any punches. He admitted it. He said, and I said, okay, I'm going to, you know, because up until then, the RCMP had been denying everything, but not him, the rest of the group.
Way up, yeah.
So I couldn't believe what I was getting. So I wrote the story. I called him up, and I had a few things I wanted to clear up. And I did that, and then I phoned him, and I said, you know, I want you to go over this before I send it out. Would you mind? He said, no. Come on up. So I went up. And in what he'd said in a couple of places, it has been alleged that we're doing this and this. And he just took his pen out and said, never mind that. Stroked out alleged, said, we are doing this. We are doing it. The story was improved dramatically. Now, here was a straight shooter. I filed the story, and I'm told it got read into Hansard because it became a big political issue. I filed the story, and then I went on holidays because the regular dailies were calling me up because they couldn't get interviews with this guy. Okay, so you know, I have always been predisposed to take a to sort of if I lean towards the police. But you know, with what I've done in my life, and now I've been away from that whole thing, so I think I have a little more perspective than I had initially when I was both a prosecutor and a defense counsel. And what I'm seeing happening right now is really scary, because these people who we're dealing with, and I don't mean the beat, I call them the beat cop, that's the wrong term, but you know, the policemen that we deal with on a regular basis, these guys, you know, are good guys. But when you have a culture that rewards that kind of conduct,
loyalty,
then you say to yourself, at some point, that is going to creep further and further down to the point where we have what happened at the Vancouver airport. Now, Tommy Braidwood will file his report and we'll see what he has to say. But I think you're quite right that most people think that the police officers have not been completely truthful with the inquiry originally.
Well, at Spanish Park 6, I'd forgotten all about that.
Well, you know, that was a really bad situation. Now, the thing you have to remember, though, that got reported by one of the younger officers. That's how they found that out.
He
you know, he did. Now, the sad part is, he knew when it was happening.
That just happened in an RCMP thing up in the north too, where one of the other officers turned one in.
Yeah, and
so that's not. They're not. It's not absolutely universal. But the guy that turns his fellow officer in is going to be in trouble for the rest of his.
Well,
career.
His career in the RCMP, if it's the RCMP, is over. You know.
Yeah.
Now, but you know, the sad part is that the police officers who are involved in this kind of conduct, they know what they're doing is wrong, and they do it anyway.
Well, you know, there's good things too. Inspector Al Juno,
lots
the
of
Regina City Police, was an ex-Army officer, a really good guy, and if he caught your son, if you were the son of somebody in a good family, and he caught you doing something really stupid, he'd take you 10 miles out of town and let you walk home.
Yeah.
But he got censored and that was a really good, the kids after they had that happen, and then you go 150 miles north, and we get the Saskatoon police taking Native Indians out and dropping them off in 50 below weather or 40 below weather in the middle of the thing.
Where do you draw the line? That's the problem.
Where do you draw the line?
Right.
And this is what we're talking about.
That's right. And the RCMP are not capable of drawing the line so that the public comes first. The corporate culture says that the individual officer comes first. That is, the officer. I'm not talking about the police officer. I'm talking about the RCMP officer within the structure. His career comes first, then the force, then the public and the working officers come next, based for the officer cadre in the RCMP, and that's how they work. You know, I mean, we had, what's his name, Zaccarelli or whatever, they booted him out, and now they
brought in a non-officer as the commissioner.
Yeah, and that
I'm not going to name who. Two of the past commissioners have been as good acquaintances of mine as you are. You can take that one way or the other. Okay, I've known them well. I've got drunk. One of them, this is a sort of bad. One of them saw Deep Throat, the movie Deep Throat. I saw the movie Deep Throat with an RCMP commissioner.
Yeah, you see, my view is that if we're going to support our police forces, and we should.
I'm sorry, it was the deputy commissioner when he said when that happened.
We should be supporting our police forces, but the other side of that coin is they have to earn that.
Yeah.
And a corporate structure and a corporate culture